My in-laws didn't come to my gender reveal. They didn't come because that same afternoon, my husband's sister decided to throw her engagement party, a party that could have happened any weekend of the year, scheduled with just enough notice that it became impossible for his parents to attend both events. My mother-in-law called me 11 days before my gender reveal and said, "Sweetheart, I know the timing is unfortunate, but Ashley's engagement only happens once. We can celebrate the baby anytime. This is Ashley's moment." My gender reveal was supposed to be my moment too. It was the first time our families would find out whether we were having a son or a daughter, the first real milestone of a pregnancy I'd waited 4 years and 2 miscarriages to finally carry this far. But apparently that mattered less than a party celebrating an engagement that had, by my count, already been celebrated twice before, once when Ashley got engaged, and once at the engagement dinner 3 weeks earlier that my in-laws had also attended. I stood in my own backyard, surrounded by 40 guests, cutting into a cake with blue frosting hidden inside, while my husband's parents sat, at that exact moment, at a rented event space 40 minutes away, toasting champagne to a couple who wasn't even getting married for another 14 months. 5 months later, an invitation arrived in my mailbox. Cream cardstock, elegant script, an invitation to my father-in-law's 60th birthday celebration, a milestone celebration, apparently, requiring the entire family's presence. And on that same weekend, my daughter, now 3 months old, had her first pediatric appointment where we'd learn the results of a hearing screening that had come back inconclusive at birth, an appointment I had already told my husband, firmly, that nothing was going to make me miss. I want to tell you exactly how we got here, because this isn't really a story about one skipped party. It's a story about a family that spent years quietly deciding whose milestones mattered, and what happened when I finally decided to apply their own math to my own choices. My name is Rachel. I'm 31 years old, and I married my husband Chris 4 years ago, becoming part of a family that, on the surface, seemed genuinely warm and welcoming during our engagement and early marriage. Chris's parents, Linda and Robert, hosted our engagement dinner, contributed generously to our wedding, and by most external measures, embraced me fully as their new daughter-in-law from the very beginning. I want to be fair and say that my early years with this family were not defined by obvious hostility or exclusion. If anything, that's part of why the pattern I'm about to describe took so long for me to fully recognize. Chris has one sibling, his younger sister Ashley, 27 years old at the time of this story, still living about 10 minutes from their parents' house, deeply embedded in the day-to-day rhythm of family life in a way that Chris and I, living 40 minutes away, simply weren't. I didn't initially think much of the natural asymmetry this created. Ashley saw her parents multiple times a week. Chris and I saw them every few weeks, sometimes less during busy stretches. It seemed like an ordinary geographic reality rather than anything worth examining closely. What I didn't fully appreciate in those early years was how that geographic asymmetry would eventually calcify into something considerably more significant, a pattern where Ashley's proximity translated, gradually but unmistakably, into a kind of default priority whenever her milestones and mine happened to compete for the same finite resource of Linda and Robert's attention. Looking back now, I can trace the beginnings of this dynamic to fairly early in my marriage, though I didn't recognize it as a pattern at the time, instead absorbing each individual instance as an isolated, explainable circumstance. About a year into our marriage, Chris and I hosted a small dinner party to celebrate his new job promotion, a milestone he'd worked toward for nearly 3 years. Linda and Robert confirmed initially, then canceled 2 days beforehand because Ashley had, apparently, had a difficult breakup that same week and needed her parents' immediate support. I understood, in that specific instance, the reasonable logic of prioritizing a child going through genuine emotional distress over a celebratory dinner that could easily be rescheduled. I didn't think much of it as anything beyond an isolated, understandable circumstance. But over the following year, similar instances accumulated with a frequency that eventually became difficult to explain away as simple coincidence. My work anniversary dinner, canceled because Ashley needed help moving apartments that same weekend. A milestone celebration for Chris's 5 years at his company, shortened considerably because his parents needed to leave early for an impromptu family dinner Ashley had organized. I want to be honest that I didn't raise these concerns directly during this early period. I told myself, repeatedly, that every family has natural rhythms and closeness that don't map perfectly onto fairness, that Ashley's proximity and single status naturally generated more day-to-day need for her parents' involvement, and that resenting this dynamic would make me seem petty or insecure rather than simply observant. Chris and I began trying to conceive about 2 years into our marriage, a process that, I want to be honest, took a devastating emotional toll on both of us, far beyond what either of us had anticipated going into it. I experienced my first miscarriage at 9 weeks, roughly 6 months into trying. I won't detail the full emotional weight of that loss extensively here, except to say that it fundamentally altered how I understood pregnancy going forward, transforming what I'd once assumed would be a straightforward, joyful process into something I approached with considerable anxiety and guarded hope. My second miscarriage occurred about 8 months later, at 11 weeks, a loss that hit even harder given how carefully we'd approached the pregnancy the second time, following every precaution our doctor recommended, only to receive the same devastating news at a routine ultrasound appointment. I want to describe, specifically, how Chris's family responded to these losses, because I think it matters for understanding the fuller context of what happened later. Linda was, in these specific moments, genuinely present and compassionate. She called regularly during my recovery from both miscarriages, sent thoughtful gifts, expressed what felt like sincere grief alongside our own. But I also noticed, even during this genuinely difficult period, a specific asymmetry that would eventually become relevant to the larger pattern. Ashley, going through a comparatively minor relationship disappointment during roughly the same period as my second miscarriage, received what felt like a disproportionate share of family attention and concern relative to what I was navigating. An imbalance I told myself, at the time, was simply my own grief distorting my perception of an otherwise reasonable family dynamic. I became pregnant a third time about 5 months after my second miscarriage, news that Chris and I initially kept private for considerably longer than typical, given our history, waiting until I was nearly 14 weeks along before telling either set of parents, wanting to have crossed the highest risk window before opening ourselves up to family excitement that might, once again, need to be walked back. Linda's reaction when we finally shared the news was warm and genuinely emotional. Tears, immediate questions about how I was feeling, real acknowledgement of how much this pregnancy meant given our history with loss. I remember feeling, in that specific moment, genuinely hopeful that this pregnancy might represent a kind of reset in how thoroughly my milestones would be prioritized going forward, given how much both of us had already been through to reach this point. The pregnancy progressed steadily, each successive ultrasound and milestone bringing genuine relief, alongside continued anxiety that had become, by that point, simply part of how I experienced pregnancy after 2 previous losses. By the time we reached the 18-week mark, when we'd be able to learn the baby's sex, Chris and I decided to plan a gender reveal party, not an elaborate, over-the-top event, but a genuinely meaningful gathering of close family and friends, to celebrate a milestone that, given our history, felt considerably more significant to us than it might have felt to a couple who'd conceived easily on their first attempt. We selected a date about 6 weeks out, coordinated carefully with both sets of parents' calendars to ensure everyone could attend, and sent out invitations roughly a month in advance, wanting to give everyone ample notice for what genuinely felt, to us, like one of the most important celebrations of our entire journey toward parenthood. About 3 weeks after we'd finalized our gender reveal date and sent invitations, Ashley got engaged to her boyfriend of 2 years, a genuinely joyful piece of news that I received with real, uncomplicated happiness, having grown genuinely fond of Ashley over 4 years of marriage into this family. Ashley and her fiancé Marcus hosted an engagement dinner about 2 weeks after the proposal, a warm, well-attended celebration that Chris and I gladly attended alongside both sets of parents, genuinely celebrating alongside everyone else in the room. I want to be clear that I harbored no resentment whatsoever toward Ashley's engagement itself, or toward the engagement dinner specifically. What happened next, however, represented a different kind of decision entirely, one that would ultimately define the pattern at the heart of this entire story. About 10 days after the engagement dinner, Ashley decided, somewhat spontaneously, to throw a larger engagement party. Not a formal, long-planned event, but a considerably bigger celebration than the initial dinner, organized within the span of about 2 weeks, at a rented event space, with a guest list extending well beyond immediate family into extended relatives and friends. The date Ashley selected for this second engagement celebration was the exact same Saturday as our already scheduled gender reveal party, a date that had been finalized and communicated to both sets of parents nearly a month before Ashley's engagement party was even conceived of as an idea. Linda called me 11 days before our gender reveal, her voice carrying a careful tone I'd learned, over 4 years, to recognize as the precursor to news I wasn't going to like. "Sweetheart, I need to talk to you about something," she said. "Ashley's decided to have a bigger engagement celebration, and the venue she wants was only available this coming Saturday. I know that's the same day as your gender reveal, and I feel terrible about the timing, but Robert and I have talked about it, and we think we need to be at Ashley's party." I stood very still, waiting for the rest of the sentence, the part where she'd say, "Obviously, this was simply information. Obviously, nothing needed to change. Obviously, our gender reveal had been planned and confirmed weeks before Ashley's party was even an idea." That part never came. "I know this is hard to hear," she continued instead, "but Ashley's engagement only happens once. We can celebrate the baby anytime. Honestly, you'll have the whole pregnancy, the whole birth, so many more milestones ahead. This is Ashley's moment, and I don't want her to feel like her family wasn't fully there for something this significant in her life." I want you to sit with that sentence for a moment, the way I had to sit with it during that phone call, because I think it captures, more precisely than almost anything else in this entire story, exactly how Chris's parents had been weighing my milestones against Ashley's for years, without ever quite articulating it so directly. "We can celebrate the baby anytime. This is Ashley's moment." As if a pregnancy achieved after 2 devastating losses, a milestone I had waited years and endured genuine grief to reach, was somehow less significant, less deserving of full presence than a second engagement celebration for an event that had, by that point, already been celebrated once. "So you're not coming," I said quietly, not really a question. "We'll come see you both right after, I promise," Linda said, which is, I have since learned, one of the emptiest sentences a parent can offer when the actual moment itself is what mattered. I told Chris about the phone call that evening, watching his face shift from confusion to something closer to genuine anger as the full weight of what his mother had said settled in. "They're seriously not coming," he said, "after everything we've been through to get to this point? For Ashley's second party for the same engagement she already celebrated 2 weeks ago?" I appreciated Chris's immediate, unambiguous anger on my behalf. A stark contrast, I would come to realize over the following months, to how his family had historically handled these kinds of competing priority situations. He called his mother directly that same evening, a conversation I wasn't part of, but that he relayed to me afterward, describing his own attempt to explain exactly how significant this specific milestone was to both of us, given our history. "She kept saying the same thing," Chris told me afterward, "that Ashley's engagement only happens once, that we'd have plenty of other baby milestones to celebrate together. I don't think she fully understood, or maybe didn't want to understand, that this gender reveal wasn't just some replaceable party to us. It was the first time we'd get to know if we were having a boy or a girl, after everything. I want to be honest that Chris's willingness to advocate directly, immediately, on my behalf during this specific instance, stood in genuine contrast to some of his historical patterns around his own family, patterns I'll describe more fully later in this story. But even his direct advocacy, in this instance, didn't change his parents' ultimate decision. They confirmed, within the week, that they would be attending Ashley's party rather than our gender reveal. Our gender reveal took place on a bright Saturday afternoon in our backyard. 40 guests gathered around a table with a large white cake, blue or pink frosting hidden inside, ready to reveal a piece of information Chris and I had been waiting years, through genuine loss and grief, to finally learn. My own parents attended, genuinely present and excited. Chris's extended family on his father's side attended, several aunts and uncles making the drive specifically for the occasion. Our closest friends filled out the remainder of the guest list, creating a genuinely warm, celebratory atmosphere, despite the absence that hung over the day in a way I couldn't fully ignore, however hard I tried. Linda and Robert's absence was noted by several guests throughout the afternoon. Gentle questions about where Chris's parents were that I answered as diplomatically as I could manage, not wanting to turn what should have been a joyful celebration into an airing of family grievances in front of 40 people. We cut the cake together, revealing blue frosting inside. We were having a son. The genuine joy of that moment, shared with the people who had actually shown up, existed alongside a quiet ache that I couldn't fully suppress, an awareness that the people who should have been standing beside us for this particular milestone were, at that exact moment, 40 minutes away, toasting champagne to an engagement party that hadn't even existed as an idea until 11 days earlier. I received a text from Linda later that evening, and "So happy for you both. A boy. We can't wait to celebrate properly soon. Ashley's party was wonderful, by the way. You would have loved the venue." I didn't respond to that text for 2 full days. I want to be honest that the months following our gender reveal were not defined by open conflict, exactly, but by a kind of quiet, persistent distance that I maintained deliberately, needing time to process the specific hurt of that day before I could engage with Linda and Robert as though nothing significant had happened. Linda and Robert did, as promised, come to visit us properly about 2 weeks after the gender reveal, bringing gifts, expressing genuine excitement about the baby, behaving in every visible way as though the earlier absence had been a minor, forgivable scheduling conflict, rather than a deliberate choice to prioritize a second engagement party over a milestone we'd waited years and endured genuine grief to reach. I didn't confront them directly during this visit, largely because I was still processing my own feelings about the situation, and because Chris and I had agreed, in the aftermath, that raising it too soon after the fact risked the conversation feeling more reactive than clear. The remainder of my pregnancy proceeded relatively smoothly, medically speaking, though I want to acknowledge that the anxiety accumulated from 2 previous losses never fully disappeared, even as each successive milestone, the 20-week anatomy scan, the 3rd trimester check-ins, the eventual arrival of full-term status, brought genuine relief alongside continued vigilance. Our son, whom we named Oliver, was born 5 months before the invitation to Robert's 60th birthday celebration arrived in our mailbox, an arrival that, I want to be honest, briefly softened some of the residual tension from the gender reveal, in the way that new grandchildren often do temporarily soften even genuinely strained family dynamics. Oliver's birth itself was, thankfully, uncomplicated, arriving healthy and full-term after a pregnancy that had felt, at multiple points, genuinely fragile given our history. Linda and Robert visited the hospital within hours of his birth, genuinely emotional, holding their first grandchild with visible joy that felt, in that specific moment, entirely sincere. I want to acknowledge that Linda was, during Oliver's earliest weeks, a genuinely helpful and present grandmother, visiting regularly, offering practical support during the exhausting newborn period, behaving in every visible way, as though she understood the significance of this child's arrival after everything we'd been through to reach this point. At Oliver's 6-week checkup, his pediatrician mentioned, somewhat routinely, that his newborn hearing screening had come back with an inconclusive result on one ear, not necessarily indicating an actual hearing issue, but common enough with newborns that it warranted a more thorough follow-up screening at a specialist's office once he was a bit older, typically scheduled around 3 months of age. I want to be honest that this inconclusive result generated real anxiety for me, disproportionate perhaps to its actual likely significance, but understandable given everything Chris and I had already navigated just to reach the point of having a healthy baby in the first place. I found myself unable to fully relax about Oliver's development in the way I imagine parents without our specific history might have, waiting anxiously for that 3-month follow-up appointment that would, hopefully, confirm the initial result had simply been a fluke of newborn testing rather than anything more significant. The invitation to Robert's 60th birthday celebration arrived in our mailbox when Oliver was just under 3 months old, cream cardstock with elegant script, announcing a milestone celebration at a rented venue, complete with catering, a guest list extending well into extended family and friends. I stood in our kitchen holding that invitation, and I want to describe, honestly, the specific calculation that immediately began forming in my mind, because I had, by that point, already scheduled Oliver's follow-up hearing screening for the exact same Saturday listed on Robert's invitation, an appointment I deliberately selected weeks earlier, specifically because it was the earliest available slot with the pediatric audiologist our doctor had referred us to. I felt something settle in my chest that was neither anger nor particular surprise, but something colder and clearer than either of those emotions. A kind of quiet, final clarity that had been building, I realized, since that phone call, 11 days before our gender reveal. I called Linda that evening, mostly out of habit, mostly because some deeply ingrained part of me still felt obligated to explain myself directly, even now, even after everything that had already happened. "Mom, I got the invitation for Dad's birthday," I said. "We're not going to be able to make it. Oliver has his follow-up hearing screening that same day, and I'm not moving it." There was a pause on the other end of the line, a pause I recognized instantly, because it was the exact same pause that had preceded the phone call 5 months earlier about Ashley's engagement party. "Rachel, it's Robert's 60th birthday," Linda said, her voice tightening. "This is a real milestone. Surely a hearing screening can be rescheduled. Babies have appointments like that constantly, don't they? This is a once-in-a-lifetime celebration for his father." And there it was again, the same unspoken math I'd been on the losing side of for years. Oliver's medical appointment, framed as flexible, reschedulable, secondary. Robert's birthday, framed as immovable, essential, non-negotiable. "Mom," I said, and I want you to understand that my voice was calm, not shaking, not angry, simply, finally, completely certain. 5 months ago, you told me Ashley's engagement only happens once, so you and Dad missed our gender reveal, the first moment we found out whether we were having a boy or a girl, after 2 miscarriages, after years of waiting. I understood that decision, even though it broke my heart in the moment. But I need you to understand this decision too. Oliver's hearing screening is happening once, on that exact date, and I am not moving it for anyone, including a birthday party that will happen whether we're in the room or not. "That's completely different," Linda said. "A follow-up screening isn't the same as an actual medical emergency. You're being dramatic, Rachel." "Maybe it isn't an emergency," I said. "But it's the appointment that will tell us whether our son needs early intervention for a hearing issue, and I am not treating that as less important than a party, the same way you decided our gender reveal was less important than Ashley's second engagement celebration for something she'd already celebrated once." Word travels fast in families like this one. Within a week, Robert called directly, his tone carefully diplomatic, in a way that suggested damage control rather than genuine reflection. "Your mother's very hurt," he said. "She feels like you're punishing us for something that happened months ago." "I'm not punishing anyone, Dad," I said. "I'm doing exactly what you and Mom taught me to do 5 months ago, when you explained that when two important things conflict, you choose the one that matters more in that specific moment, and you trust that the person who loses out will understand, because family is supposed to understand these things. I'm simply choosing, this time, the way you both taught me to choose. It's my 60th birthday, Rachel, 60 years, and our gender reveal was the first time we learned whether we were having a son or a daughter, after 2 miscarriages," I said. "You missed it for a second engagement party. I understand that hurt in a way I don't think either of you have ever fully sat with, and now I need you to understand this." Ashley called too, a few days later, not angry exactly, but visibly uncomfortable, clearly caught in the middle of a family dynamic she was, I think, encountering directly for the first time in quite this way. "I feel terrible that this is all connected to my engagement party," she said. "I never meant for that to become this whole thing between you and Mom and Dad." "I appreciate you saying that," I told her, genuinely. "But this isn't about punishing you, or punishing Mom and Dad for something in the past specifically. This is about me finally prioritizing Oliver's needs the same way our family always prioritized yours. I'm not doing this out of spite. I'm doing it because he deserves a mother who shows up for him every single time, without fail." The Saturday arrived. While Robert's 60th birthday celebration unfolded across town, catering, a rented venue, extended family and friends gathered to celebrate. Chris and I sat in a pediatric audiologist's waiting room, Oliver fussing quietly in his car seat, waiting for a follow-up screening that would tell us whether our 3-month-old son needed early intervention for a potential hearing issue. The appointment itself, thankfully, brought genuine relief. The follow-up screening confirmed that Oliver's hearing was, in fact, entirely normal. The initial inconclusive result had been exactly the kind of newborn testing fluke the pediatrician had mentioned as a common possibility, caused, the audiologist explained, by residual fluid that commonly affects initial screenings and typically resolves within the first few months. I want to describe the specific relief of that moment, because I think it matters for understanding exactly why I'd been so unwilling to move that appointment for any reason. 2 previous losses had taught me, in a way I don't think anyone without similar experience can fully understand, that certainty about your child's well-being is never guaranteed, and that showing up fully, completely, for the appointments that could confirm or complicate that certainty was not optional to me, regardless of what other events happened to compete for that same date. Chris squeezed my hand as we walked out of that office, both of us considerably lighter than we'd been walking in. "I'm really glad we didn't move this," he said quietly, and I felt, in that moment, a specific validation of the decision that had cost us real tension with his parents over the preceding weeks. My phone buzzed twice that evening, text from Linda, presumably sent from Robert's party. The first read: "Everyone's asking where you 3 are. This is embarrassing for your father." The second, sent nearly 3 hours later, read differently: "I watched Robert open his gifts tonight and kept thinking about how you must have felt at your gender reveal, watching us not be there. I think I finally understand what you were trying to tell me." Linda called 2 days later, her voice different from any conversation we'd had in the entire 5 months since the gender reveal, quieter, less defensive, closer to something genuinely honest. "I've been thinking a lot since the party," she said, "about your gender reveal, about Oliver's appointment, about Ashley's engagement, and her party, and every milestone in between. I think, if I'm being completely honest with myself, I've spent years telling myself I loved both my children's futures equally, while making decisions that never actually reflected that when it came to comparing your milestones with Ashley's. I didn't say anything right away, wanting to let her finish, wanting to see if this was genuine reflection, or another version of damage control, dressed up more convincingly. Ashley's always been easier for me, she continued. Physically closer, more involved in day-to-day family life, and I think somewhere along the way, that closeness made her milestones feel more immediate to me, more urgent, in a way that made yours feel more distant, more reschedulable, even when they clearly weren't. I was wrong, Rachel. I don't know if sorry is enough after everything, but I am sorry. It's not about equal love, I said quietly. I never needed you and Dad to love us exactly the same way. I needed you to show up for the things that mattered to us with the same urgency you always had for the things that mattered to Ashley. That's all I've ever wanted. Just equal effort when it actually counts. I know, she said. I understand that now, in a way I don't think I fully understood before this year. In the months since that conversation, small but genuine things have shifted in how Linda and Robert engage with our family's milestones. Linda has asked more questions, unprompted, about Oliver's development, genuinely curious rather than performatively polite. She specifically asked, a few weeks ago, when Oliver's next pediatric appointment was scheduled, and whether she could come along, a question that would have seemed genuinely unimaginable to me during the tension of those earlier months. Robert, characteristically less verbal about emotional matters, sent a card recently, no specific occasion attached, simply reading, "I should have been at your gender reveal. I'm proud of the parents you and Chris have become with Oliver. I hope it's not too late to show up better going forward." Ashley, for her part, has become notably more attentive to these dynamics as well, mentioning more than once that watching this entire situation unfold made her recognize patterns in how the family operated that she'd simply never had reason to examine before, given how consistently she'd benefited from them without particularly noticing. I don't know exactly what our relationship will look like years from now. I don't know if Linda and Robert will fully unlearn a pattern built over their entire relationship with both their children, or whether some of it is simply too deeply embedded to ever completely disappear. But I know this. I stopped waiting for them to change before I started protecting Oliver from inheriting the same quiet ache I'd carried through years of watching my own milestones consistently rank second. I think about that backyard often. The gender reveal cake, the blue frosting, 40 guests genuinely celebrating alongside us, and the specific ache of knowing the two people who should have been standing there too had chosen, instead, a second party for an engagement that had already been celebrated once. I think, too, about that audiologist's waiting room, Oliver fussing quietly in his car seat, and the particular clarity of knowing, without hesitation, exactly which appointment mattered more that day. If there's one thing I want anyone watching this to take away from my story, it's this. The people who taught you what you're worth by how consistently they showed up for you are also, whether they intended or not, teaching you exactly how to show up for the people who depend on you now. I spent years learning that my milestones were negotiable, reschedulable, secondary to someone else's. I refused to let my son learn that same lesson about himself, even if it meant disappointing the very people who taught it to me. You are allowed to stop rearranging your own life around people who have never once rearranged theirs around yours. You are allowed to choose the quiet, unglamorous appointments of the people who depend on you over the elaborate celebrations of people who have spent years choosing someone else over you. When the two genuinely conflict, that choice isn't punishment. It isn't spite. It's simply, finally, applying the same standard to your own life that was always applied to you. Robert's 61st birthday is coming up in a few months. Smaller this time, Linda told me. Just a quiet family dinner, nothing elaborate. She asked, specifically, if Oliver's schedule would allow us to be there for the whole thing, a question that would have seemed impossible to imagine 18 months ago. Oliver is 8 months old now, hearing perfectly fine, babbling constantly in a way that fills our house with a specific kind of noise I don't think I'll ever stop being grateful for, given everything it took to get here. If this story reminded you of your own family, your own missed milestones, your own quiet decisions about who finally gets your full presence and who doesn't, I want you to know something. Choosing yourself and the people who depend on you is never selfish. It's simply overdue. If this meant something to you, tell me in the comments. I read every single one. And if you'd like to hear more stories like mine, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do isn't to demand an apology from the people who overlooked you for years. Sometimes, it's simply deciding, quietly and firmly, exactly who deserves your presence going forward, and showing up fully for them instead.